Good morning. This is Mary Lou Foster, and hopefully I'm oriented the correct direction. Let's try this again. Looks like I'm live. It is Saturday. And all right, let me make my computer cooperate with me. It's sideways. I mean, it's not sideways, but it's drooping. All right. Computer, cooperate with me. Let me turn down my volume here. All right, because I don't need to hear myself. Okay. I think that's pretty good. I might be a little bit too low. All these little details that you need to tend to. Comments will appear here. It's Saturday, November the 20th. I'm going to demonstrate the cards that we made in a card class this week. I don't think that's too close. You can see the card. I'm afraid whenever I start doing my hands under it that it's going to take up a lot of space. So I do have extra card kit this time. If you're interested in these cards for $20, I can get it to you. There are 5 cards. I would have to charge you mailing if I need to mail them to you. I cannot do your stamping, so hopefully you would have some stamps that you could substitute. If you have a stamp that says Merry Christmas, that's going to work because I've used Merry Christmas on 3 of them. Different fonts, different looks, different designer series paper. But this was a Christmas card class. So the first card I'm going to show you, on ours, we did heat embossing. You can probably see just a little bit of shine. It's raised. It's kind of a smooth. And what I thought today, I'm going to try the Craft White ink pad just to see the difference. I didn't have a craft ink pad when I was designing these cards, but I wanted my Merry Christmas to be white, so that's why I went with the embossing powders. But I want to try, I'm going to go ahead and stamp it, because when you're using craft ink you have to set that aside and let it dry or it will smear. Oh, you know what? It did come with an inker, white, craft. So apparently this is an uninked ink pad, and you're supposed to, see if I can get it to ink it. So let's see how that's going to go on live TV. I know how to re-ink ink pads because you take the back of a spoon and you push that ink into the pad. I'm not sure it's going to work with this one, but we are going to try it because I want to try stamping with the craft ink. Like I said, it takes it a little longer to dry. So this is one you kind of have to plan ahead a little bit. Let's see here. I should have some background music playing. Christmas music. No, thank you. Not right now. Let's see what happens if I try that. It soaked in. It kind of looks like it's sitting on the surface, but And I'm just tap, tap, tapping. You can kind of hear that going on. Do it in the center. No, I think I'm going to like the heat embossing better until I have time to actually work with the craft ink. I just pulled it out this morning on a whim. Like, I'm going to try that. So let me get it out of my way and clean my stamp. Because I do have the second strip here. Set that one aside to dry. My second strip, we're going to heat emboss. So let me show you. We don't sell the embossing buddies anymore. I still use it though because it takes the static electricity out of your paper. So whenever you over powder your stamp, you use Versamark, which is a watermark ink, which means that it's clear. Ink that up really, 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 really good because you want your embossing powder to stick to it thickly and not leave blank spaces. Pull this over towards me just a little bit more. And you can kind of see that it's dark. There you go. And I still have, we don't sell these trays anymore either, but I still have the tray and I like it to contain my powder. So I'm not using a piece of paper, and we still had it going everywhere, but it was easier to clean up. I flick it with my finger, and I always like to make sure I have plenty of powder on this. That looks, my M maybe didn't have quite enough Versamark on it. I'm going to set that aside and clean it up when we're done. Alrighty, hang on with me while I use my heat gun to melt this powder. I'm going to heat it up just for a little bit. Maybe it'll go a little faster. The first one that you do, you have to heat this gun. I think I can show you under here. See how it's starting to fill in and melt. And be white. Nice, looks good. So that's our Merry Christmas. Let's see, I got some something white on the edge. I don't know what that was. Put that away. Clean my stamp. Even though it's Versamark, I still give it a run through the... So the card base for this one is the Evening Evergreen. And the Designer Series paper is out of the Tidings of Christmas. It's a 6x6 pack of paper. We have, I did a product-based class with it, and I have a lot of it left. And it just looks like Christmas to me. So I'm continuing to use it. I think I got this card. It might have been a Pinterest inspiration, because I was needing Christmas cards, and we've made a few Christmas cards along the way, but this was our last class now that I'm gonna do before Christmas. On the top, and my stripes nestle right up next to that. My tape runner is not wanting to run very well. It's doing okay though. And then this pretty stripe. I have already punched my Christmas tree with the tree punch. These are in the annual catalog. It has been a favorite for a couple of years. So this is going to go on next. Remember how you cut your tag? You kind of go halfway I snip up 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how deep of a V you want. Go to the corner, snip it up to the end of that little nip that you made in there. And it's usually really even, looks really good. If you're a bad estimator of the center point, well, just get you out a tape measure or use your grid paper and put a little tick mark with a pencil. This is not mounted on dimensionals because I wanted to mount my tree on dimensionals. This mostly is just covering where the 2 pieces of paper met. And so what I used is the center of my, where I cut in. And then this, I almost didn't stamp my Merry Christmas far enough to the end. That is a word of caution there. Sometimes you do have to pay attention and stamp things a little off to the side, even though you'd like to stamp them in the middle. I think it's going to work. It may cover up the M. I'm not going to put the thicker part of the tree up higher. So that's card number 1. I thought I would try. I didn't put any bling on this one because I'm like, I don't know exactly what bling to use. You could use plain rhinestones, holiday rhinestones, the matte decorative dots. It would totally be up to you. Sometimes simple is better. So the inside of my card, it stuck before I was ready, is I lined it with a piece of white. I have a strip of the Coordinating Designer Series paper. Then I'm going to put across the bottom. So when they open it, it's pleasing to the eye. It's like, oh look, the inside looks like the outside. And then the sentiment that I've used is, it's the most wonderful time of the year. And that is out of the Holly Jolly Wishes. If you need a stamp set that kind of covers a multitude of types of Christmases, this is a good one. The Holly Jolly, Jingle All the Way. The Merry Christmas was from, of all things, the snowman season. I needed one that was long for my strip, so I went through my sets. We didn't use this one this year because we used it a ton last year, and it has the punch that will punch this snowman and the hat and the arms out. I just never pulled it out because I felt like I had used it so much last year that it's a little crooked. That's the problem of stamping off center here. I think I'm making the table jiggle. So that's card number 1. You may see this host code here. If you need to place an order, you don't have to use host codes. I always provide one so that all of the orders will kind of total up on one host code. It's kind of a benefit for your hostess. If you would like to be a hostess, I would love to have a hostess. And you would get, if your party goes over $150, you would get the benefit of the Stampin' Rewards. It's 10% of the sales, so if you had a $200 party, you'd get $20 of free products to pick out. So for me, it's a way of restocking unless someone volunteers to become a host for me. And I've not done that where you draw for a secret host. They kind of consider that gambling just a little bit, so they caution us about doing that. But I would love it, you know, 1 month if someone wants to volunteer to be the hostess. You might work a little harder on inviting a friend or two so that we had a pretty good crowd. We would have our card class. Any orders placed then would all go on the same host code, and you could benefit from that. So it's not an option we've talked about much, but one that I'm willing to offer. So my gingerbread and peppermint. And I know you're like, we've seen that paper before. It's also 6x6. 6x6 paper. This one's open. Gingerbread and peppermint. And we've used... So my inspiration card for this one was a little more involved than I felt like maybe a card class needed to be. It is a fun fold card that kind of shows the different sides of the designer series paper. And I'm like, you know what? We can make that same front on just a regular flat card. Make it look like that. The belly band I took and just put on the front of the paper. So I kind of adapted it. People don't sometimes know what to do with these belly bands. So that's another reason that I chose to kind of not copy that one exactly. So for this one, it is on a white card base. There are a lot of pieces to this one because of the designer series paper on the front. So I may not bore you with all the stamping, all of the pasting, and make sure my card it's a little wonky. Wonky is a technical term. It possibly goes on the inside. Oh, those were in there. I just didn't see them. Well, I've already done my die cutting to save some time. So this is the strip that goes, and yes, you don't see this very much because you're putting a sentiment and those other elements on it, but it still added a little detail. So this one, it's a little challenging to get your spacing correct because you need this little border all the way around it. So you have to plan it out just a little bit. Everybody has their own secret of how they get it to work out. I'm going to start with this red peppermint one. Put a little adhesive on the back of it. And I've kind of laid those out. So as long as I'm getting a pretty even edge all the way around it, it might have been a little too far down. And it's totally your card kit. If you'd rather use the other side of the paper, you can. But I loved this side that has the small ornaments and the brown background. Well, brown, not sure. It might be cinnamon cider. This paper coordinates with that color. And then this one. There you go. It may not be perfect, but it's a handmade card. So let's go ahead and stick our designer series paper on our real red strip. I can provide cutting instructions if needed. And this I stuck on flat, no dimensionals. Surprise, surprise. Kind of in the center of the card. The sentiment on the label. This label comes out of the dies called Pretty Pillow Box. There's a label, tags, another label, in the little pillow box. And they are about this size. Unfortunately, a gift card does not fit in these, but candy does, money does, a note. Sometimes we give notes for Christmas. So it's a cute way to package it up. This is stamped in real red. It says, wishing you a Merry Christmas. It's upside down. This particular sentiment comes out of the Frosted Gingerbread stamp set. And my little die, I'm going to pull this over because I don't want it to be crooked like that other one was. Ended up with a little notch right here, but it's going to get covered up. So I went with it. Sometimes if you know those things, you can use your imperfect pieces. So I'm going to recess that in just a little so our little dab of green shows up. The bell went under the bottom. It looked better that way. It gave kind of a background then for the ornament. I'm not necessarily going to sit here and try to get these to cooperate with me. We tied a bow out of a piece of the white baker's twine. Remember, our baker's twine now comes in a package that has 5 colors. It has white, crumb cake, very vanilla, black, and basic. It's a gray, smoky slate. So, one order and you get. I gave everybody a choice of possibly using some of the colored Simply Elegant trim. I hesitated to do that. I might on some of the extras that I make. And then we've embellished it with the matte decorative dots. You can pick what color. I use the, I think it's Old Olive right here, and then the red and a small green one above it. You could put them on the ornament. I didn't want to build up too many layers because you do have to be conscious about mailing these days. Anything that doesn't go through their automatic machines costs extra mailing. So you don't want your recipient to be having to pay postage due on a letter that you've sent. And then the inside, show you what I stamped. There's a strip, and I just cut, I had pieces left, so everybody got a different random piece of designer series paper. May this be a Christmas to remember and cherish. And that one came from, I didn't lay that set out, and we've used it in other cards. So I'm not going to remember which set that came out of. I do too. Christmas to remember. This one is worth every penny you pay, and I'm going to keep it because for cards that I make for my personal use, next year if this stamp set isn't carried forward, then this is one that you can use your sentiments. It had a Merry Christmas. I think you're going to see that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and, I stuck my fingers in the red ink. There'll be a slight delay while I clean my fingers off. I'm going to go ahead and stick this on the inside so I don't have to keep up with it. It's easier just to stick it on in there. Yep. And I can stamp my Christmas to remember and cherish. Maybe if I stand up, I'll have better luck getting it straight. And I'm talking right into your ear. Ta-da! Alrighty, that's card number 2. I should have put a clock in here. Lay that one there for just a minute. So you can enjoy the pretty card. Switch out my tubs. For card number 3. It's a Merry Christmas card. I think this was everybody's favorite. We used Sparkle of the Season dies. And I accidentally cut them wrong. I intended to cut out the same die, 2 different colors. But I cut out one with the evergreen and then one with the stars in the soft succulent. I'll show you in the kit. And I didn't want to go back and do it again because I felt like that was wasteful just to start over. And so we made it work. And I think it worked out really, really, really good. All right. So the card base is crumb cake. Just the regular cut in half at 5 1/2. Scored at 4 1/4. Use my bone folder and make that fold behave. The background is a piece of In Good Taste because there are several wood grain patterns in there. Everybody got a different piece because that's how it works out sometimes. I didn't have enough of this one for every kit, so we may do. And you can do that if you don't have the right pattern. I mean, In Good Taste is not even in, it's in the annual catalog, and you can see it has a tile on the back. I'm going to leave the dark to the top, and that light is really, really light. And you just mount it in the center with that little bit of matte around the edge. So this was a piece. This one is out of the same paper, but different textures. And then on the front of this, we have this. You had your dies. What I've learned about all these little teeny tiny pieces, when we pull the release paper, ooh, this one didn't get release paper. Well, that was my bad. Then I think I'm going to have to sit here and poke out some of these pieces because I don't want them on my card. Some people don't care. I'm kind of one, if it's supposed to poke out a place, I want it poked out. Oops, see, 2 more. Okay. Get all these little pieces out of the way so I don't end up. This strip, you may recall we've used this piece of paper. This was out of the Evergreen Elegance. I'm going to go ahead and stick it on. Our embossed piece is on the Evening Evergreen, and the embossing folder is one that, depending on which side you use, you get either stars or the checked pattern. Like you could put a piece in and emboss the whole front. And I'm going to do that. I just didn't for a class. But I wanted just the checks. So I cut my little piece of cardstock and then I put it in here at an angle and kind of picked if I wanted the straight edge recessed a little bit. So you could kind of pick. It's crooked, but I'm not going to run it through. And then run it through and it embosses and you have this cool checked pattern to put on the front of your card. So that gives it a little different look. And they're a little bit long by accident. But have no fear, we'll give it a haircut. Still a little long. Let's see here. Okay. Excuse me. I have a hack. It may have gotten embossed just a little bit crooked. And then, see, we can do this in the soft succulent. And it did get. So let me go ahead and get some glue on this. I put adhesive sheet on the back, I think, of everybody's. No one complained, so if I missed, they just went with the flow. it kind of had what I call a flat side. Like it was built to go to the bottom or to the top. Now let's see what happens if I peel this off. If it's going to take all those extra pieces, or if I'm going to need to sit here and pull them out. I'm going to stick it right there. Hopefully I'll be able to get it off. So you put that adhesive paper, see, fell right out, on it before you run it through and die cut it. And it saves you having to put a bunch of glue or adhesive on the backs of these really teeny tiny dies. A big time saver. And we've got a little piece right here. I want to get it all off because I would like for this to stick really well. So I just need to put it on here and kind of pick a spot where I think it looks pretty good. I could have put it under the bottom and it would have peeked through the green, but for this card I thought, you know what, let's try it on top where I feel sticky somewhere. Okay, and then we tied a bow in this beautiful real red sheer ribbon. This was a returning favorite from last year's holiday catalog, and I stuck my ribbon back because it was a good ribbon and it was one I was probably going to use on personal things, and it came back in this year's catalog, and I was like, whoopee! So I pulled that roll out and I ordered me some more because I love this ribbon. Trim off my tag. So if you like your tags about the same length, sometimes I will match them up like this to cut them. Of course, it's not wanting to cooperate very well. Or I make them about the length of the width of the bow. Trim this one off a little bit more. Oops. There you go. Some, kind of figure out where I'm going to put it, but I think what I want to do next is stamp my sentiment. And this is another one of the Merry Christmas. It is stamped in Merry Merlot. Gasp, you wouldn't think that would be a Christmas color, but it is a beautiful burgundy. Let me find it. Merry Christmas. And it is in the Sparkle of the Season stamp set. So basically we've used this bundle because the dies, that's where I got the evergreen and the stars and the pine cones. And then it had this nice Merry Christmas that's a different font. This looks like it's not going to be a long enough piece. It's barely. It's wanting to curl up. So what I did is ran it through my fingers and made it curl the other direction. Okie dokie. That looks okay. That cleaned off. While we're stamping, let's go ahead and do pine cones. I'm not going to completely finish this card on camera. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the pine cones. Stamp 3 of them in Mary Merlot, 3 of them in Early Espresso. And they'll be die cut. I'll show you the teeny tiny die. I think I've left enough space. It's going to have to run through 6 times no matter how you do it. That little die is that big. But look, those pine cones aren't very big. So you'll get those die cut out and then you arrange them in a way that looks good. I've used 3 of the red rhinestones to make it look like holly, and then put my bow on. The inside is lined with a piece of Very Vanilla. May the sparkle of the season warm your heart and home. That is also in the Sparkle of the Season stamp set. So is the little pine cone. So this stamp set is good for fall because it has the oak leaves. For Halloween, has the bats. For Christmas or winter, it has snowflakes. Has holly. Could be spring because there is the stamp that is just a swirly stamp. That one doesn't have a die that cuts it out. But a lot of these are coordinating with a die. So that's a really useful stamp set if you're looking for one that spans several seasons. I'm going to go ahead and stick this on so I'm not losing it. And it's just centered here under the bottom. Pretty good. I'm not sure yet where I'm going to put my bow, and I think I'm going to make it smaller. It's got pretty large. And even though we stamped in Mary Merlot, I think this card looks okay with the real red touches on it. The Designer Series paper, the bigger pieces of it coordinate with Cherry Cobbler, but because this had just the teeny tiny red that kind of looked like holly berries, I thought that it worked together well. So that's card number 3. Let me change out my tubs so I can show you card number 4. It's cute. It's a Santa Claus. A Merry Hello. So even this one, it didn't say Merry Christmas. We still had the word Merry. Since my name is Mary, not spelled that way, of course. That's kind of fun. All right. So for this one, this is kind of a different look because you'll kind of notice that it's embossed with our brick and mortar 3D embossing folder. So the very front of the card is cut 4 by 5 1/4 so that it will be kind of a layered on to your card base, which is real red. Cut it 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. Scored it 4 1/4. Kind of what I call the traditional card. This one is turned sideways or landscape. So I have already embossed. I cut out my circle. I used the circle dies, cut out about a 2-inch circle. And then we're going to stamp Santa Claus on a square because he's going to mount underneath this circle. For the class, we did a circle, and he worked fine. But for today, well, we ran out of them. I'm like, I'm just going to cut a square today. So we're going to work with that. That's going to mount on there. You have your strip for your Merry Hello. And then the inside is lined with just a piece of Whisper White. So I'm going to stamp my Merry Hello. It's just stamped in, yes it is, Memento, just black. Memento was in the wrong box It must have gotten swapped around, shared around or something. Let me get this over here where I can see it. We're going to kind of angle the ends, so I'm going to stamp it a little bit in the middle. Keep that out because Santa Claus is going to be stamped in that. This card uses the Holly Jolly, or Be Jolly stamp set. Last month, you may remember, we used the Christmas tree and the little bird in the sleigh. And so now we're down to using this Happy Santa Claus. And show you a little bit about that. So I probably should stamp him pretty much in the center of this. Get this inked up well. Tap, 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 tap. Looks pretty good. Looks like he's waving. Get him in the center. Clean off my stamp. There are circles in there. And get out my stamping blends. The nice thing about stamping on a separate piece of paper, you can use stamping blends because remember they bleed through, so you want to be careful about just coloring on the front of a card. I use the nub end because these are all very small spaces. This is the basic black. I used a Daffodil Delight for his belt buckle. And his belt. Don't really have to color his boots because it's not going to show. I'm going to color just so he's all colored in. His pants possibly will show. Let's see what else. I believe that's all that needs to be black. And this is light real red. And it's a little bit bigger area, so I'm going to go for the big brush end. It's kind of up to you. You could color it with the darker real red and call it good. Possibly I'm going to call it good with the light real red. You do have to color some of these little areas because they are going to show. I'm going to go ahead and put some red down here just in case it ends up showing because it doesn't take very long. And I'm going to change to the nub end because this is a very small area under here. And give this. Isn't he cute? He's turning out cute. I'm going to put that up. And then I've used ivory for his face. And ears, by the way. I had not colored the ears on my sample card, and one of my girls is like, you probably need to color his ears before you mail this one out. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even notice his ears. And then his lips can be red. Let's see if I can find pink. Floaty Flamingo, Calypso Coral. If we do polished pink. Santa's gonna have pink lips. Pretty cute. So to angle these, you just pick a spot and the amount of angle that you want to do. And they're going to be angled. Like this one is going to come back. No, it's not. Go that direction. Okay. So now to mount our Santa Claus in our circle. I think I like doing it on the square a whole lot better than, and I'm going to put my adhesive on this. He's a happy Santa Claus. And his pants did show up just a little bit. This is mounted on dimensionals. I think I'm going to use, look at here. I use every little piece of my dimensionals. Go on that way. And this one will go on here. Take the loose papers off. And give him a merry hello. And he's just mounted, and the front is mounted flat on the card base. Little bit of matte around the edges. The inside. I couldn't decide what to do to the inside. He's kind of plain. I debated about stamping Santa kind of sideways. And I finally just left it plain. The Holly Jolly Christmas comes out of that Christmas to Remember that I told you about. Have a Holly Jolly Christmas. It's just such a practical, and it's just stamped in Memento Black. I'll do it before I put it in. Since we didn't use Designer Series paper on the front, it didn't make any sense to put Designer Series paper in it. And the Santa stamp was kind of big. So we could stamp. How about, let's try something. Maybe if we just stamp him kind of off in the corner, like he's waving at you. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? And I can give him a little bit of color before I stick him in. Let's do our real red. Color his hat. I had already stuck that in, and I didn't want to mess up the inside, so I left it plain. But this probably makes more sense. To just have that Santa Claus waving at you from the corner down there. This would be a cute card to send to someone who has children. Although, it makes you smile, so even any of your friends would probably enjoy pulling this one out of an envelope. I bet you they're going to smile when they see that Santa Claus. Well, nothing like doing it crooked. And then we embellished the front with some holiday rhinestones. What'd I do with them? There they are. No, that's not them. I had them, thought. Yeah. Anyway, you see the sparkle on this one. We use the red. These back in the... I had that package. We actually used the holiday rhinestones on several of the cards. So I'm probably overlooking them. Alright, that's card number 4. So which one is your favorite? This one I love because it's non-traditional Christmas colors. This Designer Series paper is Whimsy and Wonder. It is so pretty. it's specialty paper. You can see the shine. Here's another Merry Christmas. This Merry Christmas comes from the Evergreen Elegance, which is the stamp set that went with the paper on our first card, the Evergreen Elegance. And the beauty of the season, get it out because I think that's what I used. May the beauty of the season bring you joy and warm memories to cherish throughout the year. Or it's friends like you that make this season so wonderful. Either one of them would be pretty for this card. This card is one of the simpler ones. They really weren't that hard this time. Last month I might have overdone it a dab on difficulty, so I thought I'd kind of back off some. So you have a piece of designer series paper. This is the traditional cut at 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. So this piece of paper is 4 by 5 1/4. So you have your little edge of mat that's going to stick out around it. I'll be posting pictures of these cards, probably just one album of pictures, so that if you have the things at home to make these cards or some similar, then you can refer to the pictures in order to make your cards. It's stamped in Misty Moonlight, which is one of the in colors. I think these are some of my favorite in colors. When I saw the Evening Evergreen the first time, I was like, whoa, that is green, green. And I knew Christmas. I'm like, Christmas, that color is going to be awesome. And it is. Alrighty. This is just mounted flat on the card front. And you can see that it's the back of the paper for the front. Sometimes I do that. I had to order another pack of paper because I didn't have enough for the number of kits I needed to make. You could mount this piece on dimensionals, and I toyed with that idea and finally decided I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to do it simple, clean. The layers are just flat. And now the embellishments had a choice of using the 2021-23 in color jewels or the blue adhesive backed. We've not used these, and I think that's what I'm going to put on mine right now. And I thought that they looked pretty with this paper. I'm going to use these. They're a little large, like these big ones. I wouldn't use them to mail because they're definitely probably going to be more than 1/4 of an inch tall. See, look how pretty that is. It's a soft blue. So that's the consideration of why we didn't use these big blue ones. And we haven't really made a card that we needed blue sparkles. I think that looks nice. Now, the inside of the card, I did something just a little different. Instead of giving you just a square piece of white, I've given you a label that is cut out of the scalloped contour dies. Remember, those are the ones that are like 3 or 4 or 5 different sizes, and the edges are different. Very practical set of dies. Oh man, I didn't stamp that well. No fear. Let me steal this one out of this. You can't turn these over because of the way it puts that little edge on there, the stitching or the detail. Let's try that one more time. And sometimes you do have to slow down. I did it too fast, so I didn't give the ink time to, even under the cling stamps, the red rubber stamps, the ink has to have time to kind of move around. You get it on there, and if you're just slapping it on and pulling it up, it doesn't give it time to actually come in contact with the paper. And I rushed. And I didn't put it flat, so I didn't get a good image. And then this, you really don't have to have anything else. You know how we always try to decorate the inside of the card? You have room to write. It's pretty. It's kind of unexpected. Well, that is, those are the 5 cards that we made in class this week. I appreciate everyone who came. It was a small group, but we had a good time. And my next class will be Thursday, December the 30th. It's possible I will have to back up and use the 29th also, because my 1:30 seating is already full. So if you can't come at 5:30 on the 30th, I'm probably will offer 1:30 on the 29th. And yes, that's the week after Christmas. But I wanted to have a class, and it'll be sneak peek because we have a new mini catalog coming out January the 3rd. It's called the January to June mini catalog. So sneak peek of the new products. We'll just enjoy some time together. I appreciate your time. If you would like these card kits, just comment and let me know. I can get them packaged up. I'll have to cut some new pieces since I've messed up 1 or 2 of them. But I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching. Bye.